Hi, I'm Andrew McLaren.
And I'm Mark Ridley.
Welcome to the Teamcraft podcast,
where we talk about the tradecraft and sometimes the witchcraft of what it means to work together in a team.
Our guest today is Luke Crosbie. Luke is an international rugby player who plays for Edinburgh Rugby and the Scotland national team. Luke was recently part of Scotland's successful Six Nations campaign, where they finished third, their highest finish in recent years. As someone who has progressed through the grassroots of rugby, playing for Livingston and Currie Rugby, he has demonstrated his skills both technically and as a leader, recently captaining the Scotland A squad during their tour of South America. Expect to hear about how to handle team success and failure, focusing on the details of your role in a squad, how tech stole the term scrum from rugby and never looked back, the importance of connections with the wider team and support staff, and the humorous use of fines to enforce standards and build camaraderie.
The summer tour. So the summer tour I played against Chile. So that's the game that I captained and started against Argentina. And I've started against in the Six Nations. Like my first time in that tournament. Started against England and then Wales the week after.
And both wins. So what was that like for the team? It was an away win against England, right?
Yeah, it's probably the favourite game I've played in to date. Like in terms of overall, we're talking about the tournament. You know what it's like in team sports. You want to kind of get that momentum build. It's such a powerful thing of going into tournaments. So Scotland hadn't won the first two games in a long time. So we managed to beat England and Wales. But going away to Twickenham, you know what it's like. The English fans and Scotland v England, it's a kind of historic event. You can imagine what the atmosphere is like. Like we get the bus into Twickenham, and obviously you've got, I think it holds about 82,000 fans in the stadium, but you've got the bus coming in, and you've got all the English fans showing you that you're not welcome there while you're sitting on the bus, which is great. And then it's just you've got all the support there. You've got all those external things, like we had Netflix in with us throughout the Six Nations tournament. They're filming. They've still to edit it all, but the kind of same series as that Drive to Survive, and they've got a golf one, so they're making one of the Six Nations as well. So you've got all that kind of cameras, all the support, and then big game, and then me first starting the Six Nations. So it was a great, I kind of thrive under that kind of pressure stuff. So it's a great experience, and to win it as well, and see all the fans really happy, and then caught with mum and dad as well after it. They came down to watch the game, as did my uncle and brother. So yeah, it was great.
So talk us through, I'm interested, we'll just dig into the Six Nations a little bit. It's recent, and in the context of Scottish rugby, although this isn't a rugby podcast, from the kind of context of that team, that's the best performance that team has had in that tournament in recent memory. I couldn't give you the statistics. Mm-hmm. As you said, it's the first time they won the first two games, and they finished third. So it was a great thing. So talk us through what happens in the dressing room in terms of talking about performance after you've won a match like that against England, and then going into the match against Wales. Well, what's the discourse in the changing room? What's being said by your coach Gregor Townsend? What's going on between the players?
Well, specifically in that England game, we know as Gregor Townsend, the head coach, he said he found it really difficult to win there. I'm not sure if he had, it's pretty rare that a Scotsman go down to Twickenham, a sellout event and win. So after that, you kind of get the head coach will speak, Gregor, and kind of say the positive stuff and aspects of the game. But the thing with international sport, that if you win, it isn't all brilliant, and if you lose, it isn't all bad. So even though it was a kind of big moment for us that we're down there winning, it wasn't that we beat England, we're the best team in the comp. It was very much that we knew we had an even bigger game next week to back it up because we had to perform twice in a row. As you get to the international level, you need to back up those performances each week. So one game doesn't fix it all. It's that consistency for the tournament, and that being the first game of the tournament. After we put so much hard work in leading up to that point, we couldn't dilute the hard work was put in by saying go and enjoy yourself. So it was very much, there's not much stories from that night. It was having one beer in the changing room, enjoying each other's company. We've worked hard to get to this point, but in the back of our mind, we know that we need to get a recovery right. So you've got the S&C coach saying it's a short turnaround. Normally turnarounds are a week, they might come to 6 days, so it eliminates that kind of extra 24 hours to recover, especially playing rugby, that contact sport. You've got high speed running, you've got contacts, you're getting hit from various angles that isn't controlled, so you really need to look after your body, especially going in test match week on week. So it's very much so we need to get our bodies right. Let's take the positives and keep them there, but there's aspects of the game that we can work on, whereas kicking, using our kicking game right, and then we're going into training, holding on to those positives and just building on those things that we can really work on to go and beat Wales, which we did. So it was very much enjoy it for a few seconds, see your family, but in the back of your mind you're always thinking, right, I've got to back this up. So that was the main kind of atmosphere in the change room.
And what were the positives from a teamwork point of view? Sometimes that's hard to answer because you're like, it's a team sport, so the team parts, it's like everywhere and nowhere. But were there specific things that you think you did well? Were there specific things that you spoke about as a team that from that win that you really kind of tried to reinforce?
Yeah, especially if you're going down to play England, it's a big physical team. Like the rugby specifics of it is they can use their weight and the power to kind of dominate over you, whether that's carrying really hard or like using their line out maul or their scrum, their set piece to kind of grind you down. Obviously, Scotland, we want to play the fastest rugby in the world, so we want to play that attacking ball in hand, but England want to try and play their game kind of slower, using their force. So as a teamwork thing, we knew going into that game that we were going to have to step up physically, which is it's a contact sport. We had to just get off the line, make our tackles. It might not be the fanciest game we've ever played, that we need to keep making our tackles, like keeping our defensive system. So if we have a system in place, each defence coach it can vary slightly, but we need to stay in the defensive system, and someone can't jump out and try and steal the ball or that, because it just leaves a gap for someone else. So we just said we had to stay in our system, do your role, and not get bored of that kind of aspect. And we've done that for the 80 minutes. We controlled the game well. Our tackle count was high, and it allowed us to kind of impose ourselves on them instead of waiting to see what they had towards us.
Luke, one of the things that I'm really interested in is you obviously have to perform on the day, but there's another point where you obviously have to spend even more time than the actual match in preparation for it. So you have to work together as a team to actually train. I wonder if you could talk us a little bit through what the training for this looks like. Obviously, don't give away the trade secrets, but what is it that you as a team do together to really refine the team elements, not the individual elements?
So the way we kind of work out the foundations of we talk about the culture a lot of the team, like the culture builds that connection, which builds that trust, which is just as important off the field as it is on. Like we're in a training camp for this tournament, so you're spending a lot of time together, which you could foresee is externally, like they're all in camp, they'll all be together, but the reality is we as a nation, like other players, we make a conscious effort to really connect with each other. So we've got throughout the training week, we've obviously got our training on the field, but away from that, it's just little things. Like we have what we call it as a connection cafe. So we get a barista in to make loads of coffee, so the boys love that. But it's wee things like that. It's down in the lobby, and then it's a conscious effort that all the boys, like whether you win, whether you lose, if you had a bad game or a good game, it's just you come down, you sit next to each other, and you just have a chat, whether it's about rugby or anything at all. So you've got that kind of off the field. So that's what we do. The first day of training, say on a Monday, would be the kind of connection focus. We do all our detail, whether that's our meetings as forwards, the team meetings, kind of reviewing the game, like what went well, what we need to implement going forward. The forwards will have a kind of line out walkthrough. It's kind of known as an installation day because your body's recovering, you're connecting more with your teammates, and you're installing that detail that you need for the next day. Then the next day, on the Tuesday, say you've got a high speed day, they call it. So we'll have like gym units in the morning, and then we'll have another team meeting about just before lunch, and then we'll go out for our main field session, all of us together. Then the day after that, you'll have your main big contact day. So it's another units. We call units because you get forwards and backs in rugby. So forwards do the kind of scrum and the line out. So when I'm saying units, that's kind of the forwards train that kind of set piece attack. And the backs might do stuff that's relevant to them, whereas that's like playing off the scrums or kind of strikes or handling stuff. So it's kind of split when I say units, and then the team session we come together and do a full session. Firstly, you'd be off to recover, so you could go home if you stayed locally. You could drive home, see your family and stuff, and then Friday you're in for the team run, so it's kind of a lighter day. Do that in the morning, then you have the full afternoon off just to kind of start building, like you're pretty much recovered by that point, but you're just trying to like switch off and just start building that you're going into a big game the next day, getting your mind right, getting everything organised, maybe looking at the computers that they have at the team room, brushing up on your detail, and then the next day it's the game, and then the games go really quick. It's just on the bus, straight there, and then you're pretty much ready to go because you've mentally had that afternoon off the day before, so you're ready just to give all your body's primed, you've had all the detail, and you go and perform. So that's a kind of overbrief of the week.
That's really interesting. We might come back to that because I'm interested actually how that compares to the club setup. We might come back to that. I'm fascinated by the Connection Cafe. And maybe on a more general level, because I'm taking advantage of the fact that your Scotland team, the camp is on my university campus, right?
Yeah.
So I see you all cruising about campus. It's hard to miss a lot of you. But, there's a hotel on campus and you basically take over the hotel, don't you? And so that environment, this Connection Cafe, I mean, do you have any stories or thoughts on how effective that is or what you get from it personally as a player?
Yeah, it's good. It's obviously like international sport. It's a high pressure environment that you've got in training. If you think about it, it's not just a game. Everyone's wanting to play for Scotland. You know how important that is. It's every rugby player's pinnacle. So every training session you've got, when they're telling you detail, everyone's so conscious and so like engaged in knowing their detail, and maybe there's a slight bit of stress there. There can be slight bits of like anxiousness, whether you're going to be in the team, whether you might think you never played that well, you might be getting dropped, you might be coming in for your first cap. Like, you don't know the team. They say, oh, you can have a coffee with each other, but when it's purposely made, like have a coffee, and they have some brownies in that as well, which I can't complain about, which are good. So it's just a kind of wee switch off there, like, listen, we know you're on that high pressure, but we're making an effort here. Just have a coffee or cake with each other. The Tuesday night before dinner, we'll have something called extra hour. So it's maybe half an hour, and it's just something away to take your mind off the kind of high pressure. Basically, we have values, but we call the values behaviours. So an easy one is timekeeping. So if you're late for a meeting, you get a fine, and then we basically, when we have that extra hour, we have a court, like a mini court, just as a joke. But it's a good way to kind of impose those kind of values and behaviours. So you have a couple players that stand at the front, and they're known as a court, and they say, for instance, an example, right, is anyone want to plead guilty for being late? And then obviously everyone's trying to keep quiet, and then they'll be like, right, we've got proof. Like, for instance, Luke, you were late for the forwards meeting. How do you plead? And you can plead kind of guilty or not guilty, but
Are you allowed to give like a defence? Are you allowed to say these are the mitigating factors that led to my crime?
You can, but everyone just starts booing you and just, shouts. So you easier just taking it. But it's wee things like that we can switch off, have a laugh with each other because it's so serious to going on. We can have a laugh, a joke. And then the fine might be like, oh, you've got to hand out coffees for 10 minutes, clean the plates away, clean the physio beds, just wee things like that. But that's another method that is good at imposing that culture without kind of telling someone off, which is I found in my experience. We do it at Edinburgh as well, and I'm involved in that kind of stuff at Edinburgh.
That sounds effective. You're enforcing, like you say, certain standards, expectations, but the means by which you enforce it is actually also a mechanism for developing cohesion and camaraderie, because you're all kind of being entertained by it as well.
Especially the way we use it at Edinburgh, it's not so much to catch people out. It's, if you think about the bigger picture, if I've got a young academy player in my team who doesn't want to, for instance, someone comes in the gym wearing the wrong kit or whatever, we need to wear all the Macron stuff as our sponsor. If someone comes in, it's very rare that this young player is going to say to this older player, can't wear those socks because it's coming from a place you might feel like you're challenging me or you don't respect me, or if it is perceived like that. But this whole thing flips it. So it goes like, oh, by the way, watch out because you might get a fine for wearing those socks. And then it turns into, all right, I'll go quickly change them. So it flips the thing that he's looking out for a teammate rather than him going at him. So it's an aspect like that, which is a relative. It can flow through the whole team, that no one's trying to catch each other out. Everyone's saying, oh, I'm trying to look after you so you don't end up like doing all the coffees for an hour at lunch, like try to make the flat whites for all the boys and all that kind of stuff. It's an interesting aspect that's got some value to it.
Can we go back to the pressure thing though? Because this all sounds great, and it is great. Love hearing about it. But you kind of alluded to, you are also competing against each other. How does that work? You're aware that, like you say, someone who's pushing for the first cap, someone who's, I don't know, had a great career but is maybe retirement from international rugby is appearing on the horizon, and those different things add to tension. How do you manage that on a personal level? Do you see it bubbling over or creating issues?
No, it's not like that. Like we start at the season, for instance, we might come up with these kind of behaviours or goals that, like for Scotland, we want to be the best team in the world. Like, how do we do that? It relates to our quality of training. How do we get better quality of training? Is we need to be competitive and push each other to be the best. We all need to be really wanting to be in that team. So what do behaviours like that look like? That means that you're giving everything in the gym, you're giving everything on the field, things like that. And it is competitive, but it's not like a personal. They're my mates. But at the end of the day, if we're competing for the same jersey, then you're competing with all these. There's loads of things that you can compete for, but it is competitive, and it's purposely made like that as well. So you've got like the forwards, you might have the back rows, which is my position. So the back rows, for instance, in a gym, you have the back rows, and you have all the names and all the weights they're lifting, and you have like how high they're jumping, like it comes up how the distance they ran in the game. If they've hit, we wear a GPS which tracks all the meters you've ran, your top speeds. So you've got that. You're constantly competing with that. You've got statistics. The analysts go through every game you play and account every single tackle you make, every pass, every carry. How active are you? How many rucks did you hit? So everything's completely measured, but you're all competing against each other to get the best out of each other, because there's no time to kind of sit back. So that's why it's important that we have those connection characters, because we need to trust each other. If we're all playing in the same team, we need to trust each other and hold each other accountable to their standards to being the best. But we need to kind of have that competition as well.
guess what you're describing as a kind of healthy competition. You all understand that the more constructive that is, actually, the better the outcome for the guy that walks on the field in the starting 15.
If you're in the team or not, you're in camp all the time. So the hard thing about international sport is, obviously, over the past couple of years I've started to play, but before that I've been around the squad. So, for instance, now I've been studying, doing the exact same thing, but the only difference is I've not got on that field for, if I was on the bench, maybe 10 minutes. So I'm still doing all these preparations, committee, staying in camp, away from home, committee, going to the game still, is because you need to bring extra players to do the warm-up right before the game. So you're doing every single preparation right, you're still doing all the recovery, but you're not getting that 10 minutes on the pitch. So it's just important that you're still heavily involved just as much. So if they win as well, it's the positive impact on you, because you've impacted that training week. You're just as involved. But obviously, naturally, you can't replicate that feeling of being on the field and doing it. But we try and make sure there's that cohesion there, so everyone's on that journey together to get the best of the team.
Luke, just to go back to something that you said earlier, you talked about the units. So obviously the units trained separately. So you're this inner team. You're in a team on the pitch. You're in a team off the pitch, as you just spoke about when you're training. And then you're part of the entire Scotland rugby team. Could you think about how many teams are you in at once?
Yeah, I understand the concept. Focusing on rugby, you might say, I'm a forward, so I'm doing my units, and that's a kind of team. I'm a back row, so we're classed as a back row unit that we've got like number 6, 7 and 8, and their responsibility as a unit, as that position, is to give go forward ball, being physical, carrying, and basically try to steal the ball back. So that's another kind of team. Then you've got the full team of all the players. Then you also get a kind of an Edinburgh and the kind of leadership team. So you've got that and the decision making and responsibilities like that. But on this, you could view it as separate teams, but it's all kind of that kind of flow that's all relative to that performance. And we talk about it as well. It's quite relevant. It's just knowing your job. So obviously, I'm sure we're going over the best games we've played and the best teams that have been involved. Is everyone's really clear on their role in terms of what I do is I constantly revisit why I'm picked. So it could be what does a coach need from me? The reality is, and when I was less experienced doing the captain roles, I thought I had to do everything. I thought I had to, the standoff calls, the plays, and that's his responsibility. But then, as my first time as captain, I was like, right, this is my team. I need to control this, what we're doing off this set piece attacks. This isn't going well. Maybe I should decision I'm the captain. But to get more experience, you realise that the best players and the best teams, everyone's a kind of cog in the system. So I just need to focus on my role and, trust that other people do theirs. And you put that 100% focus and energy into your role. And I trust that the man beside me is doing that. And then we have a functioning team that I'm in the back row unit. I'm here to give you go forward ball. I'm here to know my set piece lineouts well. And I'm here to tackle hard and steal the ball. And whether that's a scrum half, you're completely different in terms of I need you kicking, controlling, bossing the forwards around. But I just need you to do yours and I'll do mine. So you could say there's loads of different teams. You could say yourself, I'm in my individual own team that I need to do that. And the other thing with the leadership thing, leadership's a team sport. Is how I kind of view it, that everyone needs to lead in their own area. And that's kind of prominent, that especially when Edinburgh have been playing well and Scotland, you've got so many leaders there. You've not got one leader that controls everything. But for instance, in Edinburgh, I'll lead the defence stuff. You've got the 10 will lead the attack stuff. You've got the backs, then the kind of full backs will say I need this. They're leading their kind of area. So next thing you know, there's not one person kind of blanket leading. Everyone's kind of chipping in with that concise. This is what I need to get the bit for you to get the best out of me, and then it all kind of parries up with each other.
So it's a bit like leadership in in the individual roles, it's fascinating to hear you talk about how knowing your role is one of the core things that you see as relevant to team success, because in the literature that would be something that's pretty well established, to say clarity of roles and responsibilities. But it's amazing how often people get lost around their roles and responsibilities. So I've kind of two parts to my next question, which is, can you think of instances where things have gone wrong on the rugby pitch because people have not kind of stayed in their lane around about their roles? That's kind of one half of the question. And the other half is, what about your ability to anticipate and understand other people's roles so that you coordinate effectively with them? Where does that feature? And knowing your role also by implication means you can anticipate the needs of other roles.
Yeah, so the first part in terms of when that's not went well was, for instance, we had a game with Edinburgh. I was captain, and we were playing a team that we were really expected to beat. So we have a game plan that we train throughout the week. So, for instance, it might be we're going to kick the ball up the field, use the lineups and stuff. So, just for example, that's our plan. So that never came to fruition in the first half, which is fine because you can't expect that kind of instant gratification from a plan. That this is a plan, like first 20 minutes, we're a few tries up. So it's all about building over that 80 minutes.
That's the classic no battle plan survives contact with the battlefield.
That's 100%. So then, obviously, throughout the game, people start getting frustrated and they might go off that kind of individually. And when you see that fragmented, and I'm seeing players kind of thinking, this isn't working, I'm going to solve it myself. We're going away from this kind of team, this like kind of functioning team towards a goal because we're sticking to the process. Some other people might think this isn't working, I'm going to do something a bit different. And then they release that frustration. And next thing we know, we're having a battle. But we view it as a battle between ourselves rather than against them because some people are next to our try line would normally kick it. And that was the plan. But we've got players frustrated that we're not like running with the ball enough. So they're trying to run it out near our try line and the boys are going, what are you doing? That's not the plan. And then you're wasting that expenditure of energy try to regather everyone to the plan and make sure everyone's on the same page. So that's times that has been tough, especially when you're under pressure with a team you can't beat, and you aren't beating them. And the second part with that kind of the reliability aspect, trusting them to do that, is you train with each other for so long during the week. You kind of know it's not as if we come in at the game and then everyone starts talking. It's kind of like, the way I'll do it is I might come up with 2 or 3 main defensive points. So whether that's to make it simple, we want to run off the line and tackle them. We don't want to kind of sit and wait and run at us. So that's like one point. The second point is when we tackle, we want to slow the ball up. So that could be holding them up or like kind of stealing the ball at the ruck so they're not playing quick ball. So that'd be the 2 main points. So throughout the week, or my training, when we're training, something's going well or not well, I'll kind of always reflect back to those 2 points. And it's that consistent messaging that it's kind of calm. I'll bring everyone in. The first 20 seconds, I just say, everyone, like, take a breath. Like, I don't want anyone talking straight in because everyone's heart rate's up. You're tired. You might be something frustrated and you might just say something like kind of white noise. And if you have a break for 30 seconds, 45 seconds, I don't want someone talking from the start to the end because it's going to dilute everything. So I just say, right, take 20 seconds at the start, regather your breath, maybe have a drink of water. Right, I'll revisit my 2 points I've said throughout the whole week. And if I feel there's anything else that I need, like the way we do it is, like the captain, we're being in control. So I'd say, what to the 10, stand off, focus on attacks. What do we need in attack? 2 points. He'd say 2 points, and I'd be right. We're happy with the points. Let's go next. And you're constantly being concise, and you're talking about the future. So there's nothing that's clouding that kind of the judgment. So you're really sure what everyone's role is, and when you're concise like that, and you're not kind of under pressure, like, oh, this isn't working, you're kind of frantic. As being a leader and obviously coming up, the best captains I've seen is when you're playing international games and all the fans are shouting, and you've even got coaches stress shouting at you, like they're kind of looking for that kind of control. So me coming in just saying, just take 20 seconds, and then they might subconsciously think, oh, Luke's not stressed here, like maybe I shouldn't be stressed. So then you revisit the points, and it fills that calmness, that, listen, we're still on task here. We might not be up points now, but we're staying on task. These are the points that we spoke through the week. Let's not get frantic now that it's not working 20 minutes into the game. Let's stick to them and keep moving, which is important.
So what's going through your mind then when you're in the actual heat of battle? Are you more preoccupied with, right, this is my job and I trust the other guys around me to be doing their job? Or are you often thinking about what's he going to be doing next, or who's going to be coming in beside me?
It's mainly like, as a captain, you need to take a lot more gauge on how the game's flowing. As times I've not been captain, you can kind of, put the blinkers on and just do your job. But the times I've been captain or in a leading position, you need to have a gauge of like the overall like flow of the game is the way I like to look at it. Like, right, how's the line-out? Line-out's not my responsibility, but how's that functioning? How's this kind of functioning? So you're getting that overall kind of feel from the game. So when we kind of come in that debrief, it's not that much of like I'm not really a panicker anyway. Like in terms of like stressful situations, it's pretty much, I feel like people can kind of look to me because I'm quite level-headed and calm and enjoy that kind of stuff either way. So it's basically just revisiting the same point, saying, right, this is what I need. There's times as well that you need to kind of, like the good leaders, you need to be kind of empathetic as well, and you need to kind of read the room. There's times that boys haven't turned up. Like the bottom line is they're not showing enough like aggression to make those tackles, and then it comes to a point that you get the boys in and you're saying, right, you're giving them more, like I need more from every single one of you. And any time I frame a responsibility to someone else, it's saying, I need more from you because I'm doing it. I'll lead the way I'm getting off the line, so I need you to do the exact same. I would never ask someone to do something I wouldn't do, whether it's tackling one of the biggest players on the pitch. Like, I'm going to be the first one there to kind of put my body in the line, and I expect you to come with me and expect the same from you. So you've got that kind of accountability as well. So it's not always calm, level-headed. There's loads of variations that you need to kind of draw on and read what's important in that game.
Particularly thinking about this from a leadership perspective, one of the things I would really like to get your take on is, what are the big things that negatively affect the performance of a team? So what are the things that if you see them repeated, it's just going to kill the team performance? Is there a context for that? It could be on the pitch, or it could be at any time in the preparation in the wider team setting. Is there anything common on the pitch in the heat of battle, as Andrew said, or anything that is just bad for a team on an ongoing basis?
In terms of the kind of teamwork aspect on the pitch, you could say that the stuff I spoke about was kind of sticking to the plan. Like, you can, the overview of it might be that, like, Scotland squad might be getting announced in a few weeks, so it's a player's game till they really stick their hand up. It's just going back to injury, so they're trying to they can act selfishly and try and do stuff themselves. Maybe that's, like, to keep it simple, not passing the ball when it's on. They're trying to keep the ball and display their running, but that's just to display their talents, not the team. So that's when it can get fragmented, and you can see players get frustrated. You can see that they're not acting in a way for the team. The other one that's pretty common, that if a player kind of builds, we don't want to back up like error on error. We spoke about, we don't want to have a negative into another negative. So, for instance, if you drop the ball, or you make a mistake, or make a bad decision, we can't keep compounding errors because we start building that momentum. So we speak about what's important, that if someone does make an error, like the culture that we have, we're right round them, like, right, come on, let's go, next job, doesn't matter, like, positive reinforcement, there's nothing that's going to benefit us reflecting on that kind of moment, because we're in a situation now where we need to talk about being in the moment here, which is another thing that we talk about all the time, is constantly being in the moment, which is kind of that mental skill stuff. But it is important that you can't compound those errors, and you can see boys get frustrated that, for instance, if they're a big carrier with the ball, like we've got big Bill Mata, who's like 100 and whatever, just shy 130 kilos. He's like Olympic gold medalist. So when he gets the ball, you expect like gain line. Not that him personally, but for instance, that's another player that's what he's doing and he's not getting that. Sometimes you can see players go, today's not my day, and they kind of drift off, and they're drifting away of exactly what we speak about, what's my role here, and they kind of drift off, and then they try different things. Maybe I want to start offloading it, and then it just kind of shifts that whole momentum that you're not doing what you normally do and what you're picked for, and then it's leading us to the whole system getting changed, and you're shifting away from what you've implemented throughout the week, which is the hardest one in the team.
Can I jump in on that? Because when you're talking about this, I'm thinking you're giving us examples of actually when you're not, play has stopped. When play is live, you're carrying the ball, you're getting tackled by someone who's 130 kilograms. You don't have time to chat. But then play stops, right? So the ball goes out, and you have a conversation, right? So you get together, talking, like you say, you've already got a sort of protocol of the way that you talk to each other, which is, okay, so we don't sort of go that, you screwed up, that was silly. You say, okay, what are we doing next? So positive. They were still in the execution of that error. They were still trying to achieve the same goal as you were as teammates, but they just took a wrong decision. So I'd just love to hear more about what is actually said. How do you say that stuff? You've probably got about 20 seconds in a match, don't you? Like the ball's gone out, the flag's gone up. You've got 20 seconds to a line out. There must be some very impressive, efficient language that goes on there.
Just to take it back as well, in terms of like the mistakes that they get made, like for instance, you can drop a ball, like everyone's going to maybe drop a ball in a game, so that's not something we speak about. But if it's a kind of decision making error, then it's something that we hold them accountable for. If it's anything in terms of work rate, then that's an easy one. Like boys will be straight on you back. We talk about winning the no talent battles all the time. Like anything that doesn't require talent, we want to win them. So whether that's getting off the ground after you've made a tackle and back in the line, like that doesn't require any talent at all. So that's expected of you, and that's something that you can control. So if you're not doing that, like boys will be like I need more from you here. Why are you not up? Why you're taking too long to get off the ground? I need you here. And obviously, you can imagine what it's like if it's a decision maker that it might be, Stuart, that's not good enough, mate. I need you with me. And then they'll know themselves. You don't have time. No one bickers at all, and it's just kind of like, yeah. Whereas if they do a kick and it doesn't go out, tenders a kick, it doesn't hit touch. The back playing against France, we've got the fastest kind of back three there. The forwards are knackered. We just need time to do his job and hit touch. He doesn't, right? Whether that's a decision-making error in terms of not that he's like tried to aim for a touch and missed it, but then it's just like, Blair, I need you hitting touch there. And then it's almost, straight away that it's really concise, like, I need you to do this. It's not that you don't have any time to be like, why have you not done this? Remember, stick to the plan. It's really like concise. It's just like, Andrew, I need you to do this. This is what we spoke about during the week. And then you just like, yeah, okay. It's just a kind of quick revisit back to those kind of points, but which is the main thing.
The actual examples you've given there, is that common? So it's always sort of in reference to yourself. So that's the way that you motivate your fellow players to say, I need this from you.
It depends on the kind of the situation, I suppose. But for instance, if I'm like, one of the back row strength is getting off the line and making a tackle in the middle of the pitch, but that stems from where the ruck is. I need people nominating where they are on the defensive line. So wherever the ruck is, the first defender next to the ruck will normally stick their hand up. So I can turn in and see that's where he is. He's defending next to the ruck. So that means I can get off the line and and try and hit the 10 opposition 10 that's catching the ball. But if I don't have him put his hand up, I don't know that should I be covering it, should he do it? So always that communication that I don't know my role, I can't do my role which is benefiting the team. So I might say, for instance, it's like, look, get your hand up. I need you to put your hand up so I can get off the line. So they just need to that understanding, or whatever it is. If you see a player kind of dipping his head, just like, come on, we need more from you. There's different aspects that you can use, but if it's, as we talk about the teams, the smaller the team is, wherever it's his back row, it's more individual. As the teams get wider, it becomes more collective.
You're talking there about, it's an example of dyads, you with one other person, and then it expands to triads and group level communication. Mm-hmm. I just find that amazing that you've got that little setup of a hand signal and you all know what that means. That's the first defender. And is there any callback or anything like that? So like if you've got your guy who's the first defender and he puts his hand up, do you tell him that you've seen that? How does he know that you've seen that?
It's different when you come through levels, but the highest level you play, that's expected. So as we talk about, it relates to the kind of teamwork and culture, and that like talking your role and animating what I'm doing helps the man next to me do his. So if we're talking about my role, that's expected of you, that when you're playing in big games like against England, like you've got all the English fans shouting, you've got all this going on, but all that matters is in the pitch. So if I'm defending, they've made a line break, I'm saying whatever it is, like, Finn, I've got your inside. You're constantly relaying that to him because he can't see me if he's running the right side, but he knows I'm there. So you've got that accountability. That's what's expected. If he's running and he doesn't hear anything, he doesn't know his role. So then he'd turn. I'd expect him, and he would. All the players would turn to me and say, "I need you talking there because I don't even know where you are and what you're covering."
That's an example of how you're using language to anticipate someone else's role, because you know that he needs to know that you're there, and you're kind of live streaming your position to him using language. Mm-hmm. Could you tell us about what the debrief is like when there's a loss?
If we lose, isn't all broken, and if we win, isn't all fixed. Like one of my old coaches for Edinburgh just says, like, when you win, you're never as good as you think you are. And when you lose, you're never as bad as you think you are. You're always somewhere in the middle. In terms of that, it's always that, as like professional sport, we don't look at the scoreboard as much. Obviously, it has a reflection, but sometimes it can't reflect the game accurately enough. That, as you say, there's so many little teams out there that might lead to that scoreboard. But we just kind of reflect on, as again, back, what we've done during the week. Did we bring that into the game? Like, you wouldn't ever ask anyone to turn up at a game and do something that they've not done in training. So that's like, we speak about train how you play and play how you train. So we expect the best in training and we expect you to replicate that in a game. So we just reflect on the controllables in a loss. But obviously the environment's like, it's tough because you train all that time, you're committing so much to it and you lose. It's kind of like, you can look at the external kind of gratification, like a loss is, it's not worth it. But the kind of, when you get to the highest levels, the process for me, the process has always been so much more important than the end result, because I can't control the end result to an extent. All I control is my process. Am I getting my nutrition right? Am I doing my training right? Am I making sure I'm making an effort to speak to other people in my team, like my kind of small team, the back rows, the lineouts? Do they know exactly what they need from me? Am I doing all this stuff in training? Am I doing my extra work-ons? If I've done something like poor in a game let me down, I'm making sure I'm spending extra time on that. So it's every time you go to bed, well, for me, I kind of reflect on my trainers. Have I done everything I can be in this process to be the best player that I can be? Then yes, and you just keep compounding that day on day on day, and next thing you know, like the results start coming, you start getting selected for stuff, you're not worrying the externals. You can't control what people say about you in the media. Like, I can't control what the fans say. I can't control, to an extent, if the coach picks me or not. So I'm not going to waste any energy expenditure on that kind of aspect. I'm going to put that energy into doing my extras and training, making sure that I'm doing all that, 1% better each day consistently. And then next thing you know, like for me, it was like you get handed a start against England away, and you get involved in these stuff. You get involved in like Gregor sitting down and be like, let's say when you captain Scotland against Chile, and then those wee things keep happening. But before I used to kind of think about that kind of external stuff, but it's very much, doesn't matter if it's a win, lose, you get picked or dropped. If I've been dropped, I've done everything I can and I've played well, then it's fair enough. Because obviously after the Wales game I got dropped, but I'd played really well against England and Wales, so it wasn't like I was all like, oh, I need to get in there and prove myself. Like I've done all my controllables. It's disappointing, but the reality is all my controllables were done to the maximum of my ability, so there's nothing that I can really hold back or think in the past I should have done this. I've done everything that I could.
I'd love to dig into that a bit more. I work a lot in tech, and coincidentally the word scrum has been hijacked straight from rugby into tech, into something we call agile. That's a really popular way for people to pretend they're doing software development. One of the things that's a real feature of this process is what they call a retrospective. But it's exactly what we were just talking about. How as a team do we get together to try and discuss how we've just performed? What were the things that we did well? What things didn't go well and didn't go quite the way that we wanted? So obviously you've spoken a lot about your own reflection process for this, but what are the mechanics of the team as a group coming together to reflect on the performance in a previous game? Who runs it? How long does it take? Is it a constant process that happens in the week following a game? What's the structure of that retrospective activity inside a professional team?
So that kind of first day, the Monday back after training or for Saturday game, obviously we spoke about it kind of being like installing the kind of detail, but they're reviewing the game. So, for instance, you do your individual feedback. You'll go on the kind of laptops individually. You look at your own game, because on the computers it will just have Luke Crosbie and it'll have every single involvement in my game, every tackle I've made, etc. So before the team stuff, you make sure you look at your own game. If you've got any queries or whatever, a coach might come and catch up with you. If it's something defensive, you go and kind of say the defence would right, you got 5 minutes, so go and catch up about this. Or he might say, look, I need to catch you, and then he'll show a clip and be like, listen here, you're not, I don't want you doing this, I want you doing this, etc. So that's the first kind of step.
Are those things, what you've mentioned details quite a few times when you've answered questions. Is that an example of your details as an individual player?
Yeah, that's we talk about knowing your detail. That's kind of pretty common in Edinburgh and Scotland. It's kind of knowing, it relates to kind of knowing your role, but knowing the stuff that's going to work. Like we'll have line out attack. Like it's almost like chess with the way when Netflix came in, they were like, oh, we never knew rugby was this kind of complicated. It's like chess, because you've got 1 to 8 forwards, and we've got a line out, and we need to learn all the various different like kind of moves. So 1 week it might be we're all spreading the line out, and then the line out caller will shout 1. We all need to know what 1 means. They might call 2, and then we need to know exactly what that means. So knowing your detail means the line out can function, and then you've got the set piece attack, and you know exactly where you are running around the corner, with your kind of hands up, like doing your role. So that's when we talk about detail, knowing all that kind of stuff. So you're getting the training right, and other people can do theirs. So you're relying on each other and know their detail and do their job.
So going back, you'd mentioned on the Monday you've done your individual review of your kind of your individual stats, if you like, as your performance, and then what happens next?
So you'd meet with the coaches if you've got any queries about anything. Then you've got the kind of units review, which is we talk about the line out and the scrum and maybe stuff that's relative to the forwards. So then you'd have the forwards coach running that, talking about the line out. You'd have, but it's all kind of they'll kind of lead it, but then all the players will all chip in as well. For instance, if it's like, oh, this line out didn't work, the kind of coach will be like, listen, this isn't good enough from the back lifter here, he's got that movement wrong, or this is a little bit of detail that isn't good, this is good. This is an example of it being good, and the players will kind of voice it and be like, oh, I wasn't in that position because of this. Or
are you together in a group when you're having that discussion?
Yeah, sorry. So it's like a team meeting room. So we go in there, it's just kind of like a projector, and then all the forwards were just like on seats, just like as you were just watching a presentation, and then the forwards coach would stand at the front talking about the different aspects, like the kind of line out. And then we have a scrum coach that'll then stand up and he'll have clips together that show like scrums in the game, kind of talk through them and relate it back to the stuff in training. And then for instance, the scrums in the front rows will lead in that because that's their kind of their bread and butter. They'll kind of say, this is how I felt in the game, this is what it looks like, this is how I felt, and they'll kind of chat about that, try reviewing it, but then collectively moving forward, how can they get better? So that's the kind of units aspect of it. Then you kind of, the next one is like the main one, which is the team review. So then you've got all the backs and forwards in the room, like all the coaches there, most staff, even like the S&C physios, everyone. So everyone's on the same page, and then you just go through. The first bit might be defence, so we'll go through our defence review. There might be a few clips, so maybe a few positive clips, and then a few clips that we can work on. The defence coach leads that, and then he's talking about why that's good or why that's bad. But there's always a little bit that how we're going to use this into the week after, because you've got such short training weeks and international matches that you can't afford to just keep thinking back and then go, all right, now we're forward. It's always like, this is really good. We're going to keep using this detail because this is going to be imperative against Wales. It's always like, this didn't work really well. Like, why are we doing this in this defensive system? If we do this against Wales, then we're going to be really struggling under pressure, and we're going to be playing out system if we're not sticking in that. So that's the kind of defensive aspect. Then you've got a kind of, our forwards coach leads the contact. So then you've got a kind of contact review, which is basically how the contacts look in the game. So the contacts, like, kind of explained as if I'm carrying the ball, and as soon as there's a contact, how I'm kind of working to like carry and get the ball back for the scrum half. And then if something is kind of blanket throughout the team, there's a few examples of players not doing something well, not just one individual, then that'll be brought into training. So to make sure that, right, this wasn't that good, we're going to implement this small, like, 5-minute block of working on ball placement, stuff like that. And then you get the big team review, which is obviously Gregor talking about attack. So, and then it's kind of getting that common ground. If there's any mishaps in communication, you're clearing everything up. Why did you make that mistake? Then it's just you're communicating why you felt that you were under pressure, and then you can kind of resolve that and go forward.
How much of your week do you take out with that group review?
So the team review might be anything from like 45, half an hour to an hour, depending. That's just the team review on the Monday, and then the next day you'll have a kind of team preview. So we'll look at, for instance, the next team upcoming, whether it's Ireland, France. We kind of look at this, and this is what they're really good at. So we need to do this. This is actually their weakness, and their weakness reflects us as a team because this is one of our strengths. So this is what we're going to implement today at training. And then you have another team review on the Wednesday, which is reflecting Tuesday's training, and with a bit of kind of working on stuff as well.
I wanted to ask, is there anything weird or wacky that you ever do that is deliberately designed to develop team cohesion or improve communication or, strengthen culture, those sort of things? Is there anything kind of out there that in any of the teams that you've been part of that you've done that you're going, oh, that worked, I didn't expect that?
Obviously, the rugby culture is obviously the fine stuff, and then you're making sure you're having the social side of it as well. Like, obviously, you work so hard during the week, so it's like if you're going to go have a beer, then we have that all planned as well, which is so not relevant for every kind of workplace. But for instance, it might be we have like a social committee that can split everyone into groups, and then you go away and like you have food and a beer with like whoever it is in your group. Might be random. We have like kind of forwards meals out, so we talk about the teams. We have like units forwards meal out, so all the forwards go like out together, like maybe a Tuesday after training. We'll all go out together, have food, like just together, just chat, just away from the kind of environment. That's prominent in Edinburgh. We do that in Scotland as well. We'll be like out for dinner tonight, and it's in random groups, but all the staff are involved as well, which is good for the culture. Seeing the
That's quite interesting. So you get like a physio and someone who does stats, and then some of the main team coach
could be
randomly
anyone.
allocated together.
Yeah,
That's interesting. Have you had any eureka moments in relation to teamwork? Any times you can remember where you're like, oh, now I get that, or that's something I'm going to keep doing that is specific to effective teamwork.
in terms of teamwork and like leadership, for me, it was just like being in control. Like the teamwork stuff is just letting the other team times. Like for instance, we've had a coach at Edinburgh before has almost been kind of not controlling, but right, I would need everyone to do this, like follow the schedule, and then obviously that kind of breeds a culture that it's kind of top down, whatever. But then I've been in cultures and teams that have kind of been like, right, you kind of get a sense, right, no one's driving this from the top, like the head coach isn't, like it's our responsibility. So in terms of
So more
defensive,
self-organizing.
yeah, it's just putting that kind of onus on each other, but to doing that. But the main thing is me just knowing your role, and if you get put in a leadership position or a position of responsibility, just going back to why you've been picked. I used to think that, well, I was picked me as a captain, now I need to just come in the next day and just jump into this whole captain kind of personality that you're walking about and you're saying, right lads, like meeting, you're talking at all the meetings, whereas their old head coach says that just be yourself, do your job, and people, your value comes from doing your job, and that's where your value comes from. You're not speaking too much, you're not doing that, and as soon as you put in a responsibility role or a leadership role, and people know you that if you're coming through, because you're not actually progressing at these things. If you all of a sudden change, you're kind of losing that kind of that originality of why people respect you. So it's kind of keeping in touch with, this is who I am and what I'm good at, but I'm going to add a little layer to this, but I'm not going to completely shift across to try to be someone, because eventually, you'll get that burnout, especially burnout in sport. It's stressful enough if you're trying to keep up this kind of ego of being a leader. It's kind of staying connected with your team, but understanding this is business. I need you to do your role because I'm putting pressure on myself to function. I need the same from you, because overall we want this team to function and win. And it just relates back to that culture stuff we talk about. Like, good saying that stuck in my head is, we build the bridge of trust to drive the car of accountability across it. So I need you to kind of trust me. I need to build this connection stuff, all this connection cafe, this going out for food. You're trusting me on the field, in camp. You've seen me as the person, not the player. Building that trust. So when I say to you, Andrew, I need more for you here, you've got that kind of respect that I'm just doing it because I want you to be the best. I want me to perform the best, and the team to win. So you've got that kind of trust there, then you can build accountable. If you'll have that trust and you give that accountability to people, that's when it becomes fragmented. I've seen it in teams when they can kind of separate, have a little group and be like, why is he calling me out in a meeting? He's making me look like a bad player in front of the coaches, and who does he think he is? But you just important to install that trust, with that culture at the start, and then you can start adding layers throughout the season with just a new group of players.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a lot of focus on building team psychological safety. I don't know if that ever gets discussed in your meetings, but that kind of relationship between trust and accountability and speaking up is all part of team psychological safety.
Luke, you're now in your senior career playing at an international level. This is the zenith of sporting performance. One of the leadership concepts that became popular some years ago was this idea of marginal gains, and I think you just mentioned you were working on your 1%. But most teams are just normal teams, and for them, the marginal gains aren't so relevant. They can actually make really big gains. So thinking about the big gains, if you were looking at a young group of players today, what are the big gains that they could make if you had to coach them? So imagine they're really raw and they're still making some big mistakes. What are the things you would try and get them to do to make the big gains?
If I was coming at a kind of younger playing team, you'd obviously, from the rugby perspective, you'd look at like the players they have and how you can use them. If I've got a big ball carrier here, I'm saying like we're using a set play, hit him up because you're the best ball carrier, and you're giving each player an understanding of where their value is as a player. Like you're the best kicker here. Like you're taking the kicks, and you're identifying each player so they understand their role in the team. You might come in at a team and everyone's like, right, why do you think I've picked you in the team? And if they can't answer that short and kind of straight away, there's obviously work there to be done. So firstly, I'd come and identify you're one of the best ball carriers in here. This is why we're using you. So everyone understands their kind of system. And then you kind of build that to, now that everyone's good, we've got one of the best like handling backline. So this is what we're doing, and their goal is going to be this. And then you're constantly revisiting that. Like we've got the best so and so. This is our goal. This is what we're capable of. When you're in training, you're training under pressure. It's all relevant to the game, and you're constantly giving that kind of, the players know why I've picked them. This is the training sessions that reflect the pressure of a game.
So I think to recap on what you're just saying there, it sounds like the first thing is to identify the skills.
Yeah.
So you're looking at the team, you're trying to figure out what are you good at?
Mm-hmm.
What are the raw materials here? How am I actually going to deploy these?
Yeah.
And then the second part was then really being clear on what's the responsibility. So who's doing what? What are you going to go out and feel that's in your wheelhouse that you're going to take accountability for? And then the third bit was around that repetition in the training. So you're really drilling into people that they understand both of these things, and it's just becoming completely innate in their behaviours as well.
Yeah, definitely. As you go through the highest levels or whatever, it all reflects back to that kind of system. As an international, I know why I'm picked in certain games. As going back to when you're younger, you don't really think too much about it because you're just going out and joining it. If your staff don't know what the goal is or what their role is, then it's going to lead to people not knowing that kind of structure. And we talk about it. Another quick example for you is the defence coach. Every defence coach has a defensive system, whether it might be getting off the line or it might be watching the ball. So the way that the Scotland defence coach, I was talking to him about how he came up with his defensive system, and his kind of person that was looking after him said, right, have you came up with your defensive system yet? And he was like, yeah. And he's like, right, explain it to me. Then he goes to explain it. And he goes, no, too many words, go away and come back again. And he's going, what? I'm explaining it to him. So he comes back again. Then he says, right, you came up with your system, explain it again. Right, too many words, go away. And he's getting confused until it's really concise. He's like, what's your defensive system? He's like, stay square, connected, watch the ball. And then the guy's like, that's your defensive system. So it's a wee example of he knows exactly what it is in a short, concise way that he can implement that under high-stress environments. Odds all the players, we know it. It's not too complicated. We know what's expected of us. We know why we're picked in to fit in that system. So that's the kind of example of how it's important just to know what you need from other people, and then just going back to those teams, what you need from the team, what you need from the forwards, what you need from the back row, what they need from me. And it's all kind of on that flowing kind of spectrum of going up to the bigger picture and back down to use an individual.
Yeah, I love that idea of just saying, just go away.
It's just go away. He's getting all confused. He's like, he was trying to become a defence coach, and his mentor is just like, go away. And he's like, I don't get much time to see him. Like, obviously he's that busy, like leading the defence of a professional team. So he's thinking, this guy doesn't think my system's rubbish, or he doesn't like me as a defence coach. Like, go away. He'd wait till the next week, come in, he's like, nah, go away. And then eventually, it's a good learning way. So he's always stuck with that. Anything that he explains is really concise and simple for you to understand. There's no kind of, you don't need all these fancy words. Obviously, they come in handy, but in high pressure environment, the main goal is to get that person to understand what they need to do. Really simple, but because you're getting the pressures from so many factors in international sport, so they just need to know what they're doing.
I love that example. I think it's interesting as well that you mentioned behaviours because, like them or loathe them, the Army have very effective approaches to managing teamwork and organising people and achieving objectives. And they talk a lot about behaviours as well. There's micro behaviours almost that translate into bigger moving parts of discipline and coordination, and then up to things like values and systems. So it's very interesting that you focused in on behaviors. To say, the example of cleaning up the gym, that might seem trivial, but it probably represents a whole load of other things as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, we've done the academy and stuff. We've done those kind of military camps. We've done the Royal Marines like commandos training when we were younger at academy. So you go away over there, like do full day training a night, sleep the night in the gym hall. Like the boys aren't really a big fan of it. You get your wake up full day, doing various stuff, all about that kind of teamwork away from rugby. Get your ration pack. Funny one, you get your ration pack for the day, and I think they're like, right, go have your breakfast. And I think all the boys are just eating the full ration pack in the morning.
Day.
Full day's food. They're like, where's the rest of your food? Is I ate it all. It's like, well, you ate your beans, porridge, all your hot chocolate, everything just gone in one. So.
So we're going to finish on a couple of quick fires, Luke, if that's okay.
Yeah, go for it.
First of all, what are your team red flags? What are your warning signs that say, oh, this team has problems?
Individuality, taking too much responsibility by yourself, and just not working in an interest of a common goal. You need to be selfless for the best teams that have been in.
What's your best team memory?
It's got the good results we've had is just against the biggest teams, like with Edinburgh, like the big French teams we've played, where you're not expected to win. Like obviously recently against England, it's a good experience, but everyone's going out with that kind of energy, right? It's all or nothing here. So when you're playing those big games, you've got nothing to lose. So you're like, we talk about firing every bullet, going out there and you're just giving it your all, and everyone knows what the role is. Like I can just focus on my role because everyone else is doing theirs, and you can enjoy the game more as if in those leadership roles because you can see everyone's firing. They know what they're doing. It's going well. I know what I'm doing. It's just keep doing it and enjoying it. And especially when you're playing another team and you see them getting fragmented and stressed, especially when we've played big teams like Saracens. And when we beat them, you can see their game plan hasn't worked against us, and you start to see them bicker between each other or maybe moan. And as soon as we see that as another team, your eyes light up. Like it's natural. We come in a huddle Edinburgh, we're like, oh, we've got them, boys. Look at them. They're arguing themselves over a line-out call. They're getting all stressed. Let's keep on doing it, and they're just playing on top. Whereas it's a wee celebration to like rub it into them to try and get their emotions away from their kind of task and get that kind of emotion, like rattle them a bit. It's all fair game on the pitch, to be fair.
Now that's interesting. You're being tuned into what's happening on your opponent's side about that unraveling. And finally, do you have a team-related resource that you would pass on? A book, an article, a podcast, a movie, a forthcoming Netflix series about rugby?
One that's worked for me for teams, and especially me coming through working with different coaches, it's called Surrounded by Idiots by Thomas Eriksson. So that's it's about like understanding behaviour and how to like communicate effectively. So the way that does is it's basically a test that you can do, and it categorises you into like a colour. So there's 4 colour schemes. There's red, yellow, blue, and green. And then what it does is you fill out this long questionnaire that says your most prominent colour is red. And say, for instance, a red might be someone who's really bold, dominant, kind of ambitious. Negative could be like short temper and blunt. So these are normally like your kind of CEOs, like kind of high people that rank up in business, and it shows you how to communicate. Like examples how to communicate effectively. So an example for a red might be, tell me the problem and solution, and then that's it. I'm completely like business focused, like problem solution. Don't have much time for all this kind of faffing about, basically. So then you could say that a red person might not like all this kind of over communicating about stuff. Just tell me what's wrong and we'll fix it. Whereas you've got like a kind of, then you've got different colours, like yellow is like optimistic, cheerful, relationship orientated, wants everyone to be okay, like, is everyone happy? So you obviously, it says how to communicate in a different way, but it's an interesting kind of book. The Works Well in Teams is a leadership, because you can kind of, once you kind of read it, you can kind of sense, oh, that person's a bit like that. So I can, as a leader or a captain, I can say, like, that's not good enough from you. Whereas if it's someone else who's a bit more sensitive, they don't really need communicated like that. But it's all relative to the team stuff.
And finally, where can people find you? Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, I don't know.
Nah, not TikTok, just Instagram, Twitter, or post quite a bit of my business stuff on LinkedIn as well. Keeping engaged with that. Went back to old school, give a kind of presentations on like kind of high performance and rugby, done a bit of coaching there.
Great. What's your handle on Twitter and Instagram?
I'll just be at Crosbie5, I think it is.
Well, we'll make sure to include it in the show notes. Thank you very much, Luke. Really appreciate it.
Cheers, guy. Thanks for the time. Enjoyed it.
Thank you very much for listening, and thank you to Luke Crosbie. In the show notes, you'll find links to Luke's Pass It On resource, Surrounded by Idiots by Thomas Eriksson. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.